Good morning again.
Good morning.
Let's start the second session of this final project discussion. And it is a pleasure to invite Professor Licinio Lima to chair this session. Licinio, the floor is yours. And thank you very much for all your contribution.
Thank you so much, Professor Maria Luisa. Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be able to participate again in these final discussions, project presentations. And now we will have 4 presentations in session 2. The Commission comprehends Maria Luisa Lavitrano, Elisabetta Marafiotti, Francesco Pauletti, and Marcos Pasterk. So we will start with the first presentation by Florence Marie. The floor is yours, Florence.
Florence, you need to unmute. We don't hear you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yes, okay. Sorry about that. So I'm really happy to be here this morning, even if I think we're all missing the nice atmosphere of Milan and the group, and we would have enjoyed being there one last time. So about my field project, the title is Strengthening the Effectiveness and Sustainability of ETRI's node through reinvesting for long-term successes. Before to go into the subject, I'd like to start with few slides to introduce ETRI's and how we came to develop something called a node reward framework. So ETRI's is the European research infrastructure for translational medicine. And our mission is to accelerate the translation of research discovery into patient benefit and the development of new therapies and treatment for clinical care. For that, we support researchers from academia, from industry, but also patient, policymakers, funders, in using the expertise and the capacity available within the research infrastructure. So the technical scientific expertise and non-scientific expertise such as regulatory, innovation management, and additional expertise required for translational research. ETRI's is an ERIC since late 2013 and became fully operational in 2014. Currently, we have 13 member states, 12 full member states, 1 observer. And within those member states, we work with a little over 110 research institutes, which are offering their expertise and facilities and contribute to ETRI's. And those institutes are organized around 5 technology platforms, scientific platforms, gene and cell therapy, biomarker, imaging and tracing, small molecule, vaccine. So we have a really broad offering and expertise and knowledge to offer. We are distributed research infrastructure, so in a hub and spoke model. In Amsterdam, we have the ETRI's coordination and support office, so the centralized coordination. And we work with our node, so in the 13 countries with national coordination. And the node are tasked to structure the stakeholder and research community, provide access to the research services, and manage the national translational research and national infrastructure. looking at ETRI's governance, and this is important for understanding the project afterward. The highest decision making is the Board of Governors. They are representative from ministries in the different countries participating to the infrastructure, and they are advised by a scientific advisory board, external SAB. And at the operational level, we have the coordination and support office, so the central office in Amsterdam needed to facilitate the implementation of ETRIs at national level. And not all countries have a national coordinator available. And national coordinator is funded through national investment when available. And then the execution level, which is really at the institution level, organized again in the 5 platforms I described earlier. So to provide a bit of background, at inception of ETRIs, so in 2014, was negotiated a unique membership fee. Whatever the size of the country, whatever the capital of the country or the GDP of the country, the unique fee was negotiated, 100K per country. However, quickly after inception, the need to renegotiate the contribution model appeared, mostly under the lead of smaller country or less rich country, let's say, for fairness in terms of contribution, and also to be better attractive for new country to join the infrastructure, especially looking at smaller country in Europe, and this became quite clear. However, negotiating a new contribution model is quite a heavy task and require consensus from all participating countries. And so it took quite some time, and we ended with some common ground around a fixed fee and a reduced fee for country with a smaller population, so below 7.5 million. And we had a variable fee, which is based on the national R&D expenditure. That was not so easy to find this variable fee. Initially, GDP or GDP per capita was ruled out by few countries and not applicable. So R&D expenditure was something of a middle ground that was quite well accepted and accepted. However, as part of the negotiation, we had the largest member states, since they would have to increase their contribution because of the new contribution model. They push for cashback, and this ended in negotiation with the acceptation of the new contribution model, at the condition that we would develop a reward framework that would acknowledge and reward countries directly contributing to ETRI's ERIC goals, and this could be done through a bursary, and that bursary could be available to all nodes. So this is the project I'm going to talk now. It's how we have been negotiating this reward framework, the activity required for developing that framework, and what was the final result. I have to say, so the work started May 2019, and we ended in November 2020 with a ratified node reward framework. So for developing that framework, we form a working group, which was with Board of Governors volunteers and a member of coordination and support. It was myself. What was important for the working group to be formed was to have a balanced view on a country with different size, different contribution, and also in terms of cash contribution, but also whether they had a national coordinator or not. So this is the working group which was formed, and to be able to work with the working group, we organized 7 in total teleconferences. We had to work in phase approach to ensure that decision made would be acceptable to all board of governors and that we would be able to reach consensus at the end. We drafted 2 frameworks, and before having the final one accepted in November this year. And we piloted some of the framework, or at least the collection of some data to answer the feasibility of the framework. So the initial work was to answer a different question from the working group. For example, why do we have a node reward framework? The activity to be rewarded. Who can perform those activities? How to select the country to be rewarded was a big question, and how to reward them. So what contractual basis? I'm not gonna go through all questions or not through all discussion we had, but here is a snapshot of the outcome from the discussion. So why do we have a node reward framework? Key was really to stimulate the node to recognize their effort when they contribute to ETRI's goal, and overall to improve the performance of the infrastructure and increase visibility, better understanding of what we do, and positioning. And overall also to make the contribution knowledge. The activity to be rewarded. So we look at what the node are already doing or not doing enough, and what we had to push forward, and came clear it was 1, outreach to user, because we need better increased visibility. Education and training content is part of the ETRI's mandate and was not done yet enough, and increased quality through participating to quality initiative. And when we look at those activities, we had a short survey, and we saw that indeed those activities were not done enough by the node, and we had to push forward for those. An additional point was that every ETRI's member can contribute to the activity, and this is because not all nodes have a node coordinator, and so we wanted to increase the chance of success by rewarding all activity performed by all members in a node. Was agreed as well that it would be through a bursary, and the bursary was key. It was not cash to be given back to the node, but it needs to be funding for something that would benefit all members and institutions. So through the organization of national events, workshop, or staff exchange, for example. And that as bursary, we would use positive results from ETRI's. And while we are not having yet positive results, we would have 18K euro bursary disbursed to start with, to implement the framework. And once positive results would be there, which we expect next year or the year after, we would be able to use those positive results as bursary for the node. And the information, and we would collect applications through a node report, and 3 nodes could be shortlisted. The selection of the country to be rewarded was a big part of the discussion, because all nodes are different. They are not really comparable in terms of size, in terms of outreach capacity and resources. So one great idea came towards the end, and was to look at best growth compared to previous year. So each node compare themselves to themselves, and this allowed to not have to compare node to node, but also that it would not be possible to have some kind of quantitative assessment, but only qualitative assessment, which could be done through a small committee of volunteers. And criteria for evaluation were also decided. So looking at reach, so for the outreach, the quality of the work performed, the relevance, so of course it needs to be aligned with the ETRI's mission, and the expected impact. we piloted data collection through the note report, looking at outreach, education and training activity and quality initiative. You don't have to read that table, but indeed what we could see is like high variability between nodes in terms of activity performed, but also in terms of reporting of the activity. And we see that the node reward could be a nice incentive to have a better way of monitoring also the activity of the node. We are working in developing or adjusting a template and workshop with the nodes to make sure that they are equipped and skilled for reporting. So as a result from the field project, we have now a node reward framework, which has been ratified at our Board of Governors meeting last November. It will be implemented in 2021, and we have already piloted partly, at least, the way of collecting information. So through that work, and I think it's really important, it's the first part, is we change from this moment where we were renegotiating the contribution with a narrative which was really win-lose negotiation towards something that is collaborative and about capacity building in the node. So that's through the work we really shift or move from very politicized discussion on negotiation to something which is really strengthening and building node capacity. And we also change a bit of the narrative and view on node reporting and monitoring with the agreement that this is needed and important to showcase the node, the ETRI's activity, but also to monitor the performance of the research infrastructure and to acknowledge the contribution of the node to ETRI's goal. And this is where I'd like to stop. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Florence, for your presentation. And now the floor is open to questions from colleagues, of course.
Licinio, may I start?
Yes, of course. Marcus, how are you?
Thank you, Florence, for presentation of your work. It was a pleasure reading it because involving national nodes in distributed research infrastructures is essential, and to keep them and reward them for their work is essential. My question here is, how could, I restart the question. You started with the process of receiving the task to do that by your Board of Governors at the time of starting the master course. So my question is, how did the teaching, how did the learnings you received, how did that streamline or enhance or strengthen the processes? So how could what you have learned in the master course improve the processes? That would be the first question, please.
I think the first part of the answer comes with the first module we had in management of research infrastructure and negotiation, because that was quite important for me to realize, how to negotiate and the importance of negotiation and understanding or listening to the need of different country or stakeholder, let's say, in order to be able to move forward, reaching consensus at every step of the development of the framework. Next to that, I think we have been exploring a different way of collecting information. We have been discussing also in-kind contribution in the context of the master and then in the context of the working group, keeping in mind that not everything has been accepted or seen practical. So we had to move forward with the need of the working group or ETRI's board, and not everything suggested was accepted, let's say. So, for example, part of the discussion was whether to to make visible the in-kind contribution or the infrastructure value, let's say, and this was clearly not seen appropriate for that purpose, but that was part of the discussion, and it might come back at a different time point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, please?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So, Florence, I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. I know you don't have data yet, but what's your expectation? Do you think it's initially going to be the nodes that are active in training and outreach that are going to try and take advantage of this, or do you expect it actually maybe be the smaller nodes that have currently not yet put their efforts in training and outreach to become more active?
Well, I hope to stimulate both. I think one idea, it's, we want for the reward, the node are gonna compare themselves, from 1 year to the other, and it's the best growth that should be acknowledged. So it means it's a stimulus for the node already doing education and training to do better, and for the one not doing any to start doing something. That's the idea behind, but I can't say which nodes are gonna take advantage of those the most. I think probably at the beginning, maybe the smaller ones that are not, yet there. It's a nice stimulus for them to start doing something.
May I ask? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I really appreciated your presentations and the analysis that you did. I was just interested in understanding a little bit more about the culture of this research infrastructure, because I think that anytime you introduce a system like this, that in a sense is requiring a sort of self-assessment and a lot of sharing, but then you are also implying evaluation. So I was interested in understanding more about the culture of your research infrastructure, how you would define it, and if you think that is a good base for a successful implementation of all these systems, also for the future development.
I think culture of the organization, I think one of the challenges of ETRI is that we are one of the first infrastructure on the ETRI roadmap since 2006, and then one of the first infrastructure becoming also an ERIC, at least in life science, so in 2014. And it means we have a lot of history. And we are already large infrastructure with 110 research infrastructure, and probably maybe a bit of a loose relationship between ETRI's coordination and support office, the node coordinator center, and the institution in the country. So this is something that we are trying to catch up every year by reinforcing our relationship, strengthening the node, providing additional tools, and helping building new skills in the node. And the node reward framework is going in that direction. So we are already hoping that we are bringing additional commitment and engagement in working together and developing further the infrastructure.
Any other questions, comments? Let me make a comment. You said you have a lot of history, and that is absolutely important when dealing with the concept of culture, because culture is not an instantaneous social phenomena. But you said also that there are loose relationships among the nodes, and my point is that if in that specific circumstances we don't have to talk also about possible different subcultures, because time on the one hand and different nodes and loose relationships or loosely coupled systems, as we have studied before, may result in subcultures, which is not a bad thing. I mean, not at all, but which may present another sort of challenges when dealing with governance and management, etc. What do you think of it?
Well, yeah, I think indeed, as I think as culture, what we see is, you know, there is I think because of the maybe as ERIC or the contribution model, you know, there is this culture of subscription. So people think because they're buying, let's say, through the contribution participation to ETRI's return will come to them without effort. And what we like to change is this culture of subscription to membership, where we are co-owner of the infrastructure and everybody engage in developing and strengthening the infrastructure. And this is where we need to work hard. And this is key for long-term sustainability. I think it's the same for all ERICs, in fact. And in terms of subculture, indeed, there is we can really see differences in terms of expectation, outcome, and return from that subscription or membership, if we can get there.
Thank you. Okay.
Comment?
Yes.
This is Maria Luisa speaking. Florence, thank you very much. I also enjoyed very much to read your project. My comment is that ETRI is quite a peculiar distributed research infrastructure, because it's not only distributed but also includes different platform with different kind of expertise. There is there is really a question of culture. So sometimes in the nodes, when there are this there are differences, in the different kind of platforms. They feel more like a network, and they do not have the feeling of being, part of an infrastructure. They work like a, platform. So maybe what is needed is more a participatory approach from the bottom up, and to work on this point.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Indeed, the broad variety of participating institutions and so on make it absolutely yes, indeed difficult also to build on that culture. However, it's something we are working hard on, and by bringing the scientific community together at least once a year, and we are indeed creating a culture at the institutional level, participating into ETRIs. But then it still needs to be aligned with expectation from node coordination, country, and governmental body. And this is an extra layer of complexity.
Yes, indeed. But the comment from Elisabetta was right, actually. So it is maybe it's a question of culture, that needs to be built up in your infrastructure. That actually works very well.
Yeah, no, agree at every level. Yeah.
Vicino, you are muted.
Any other question? We are just arriving to the limit of our time, but anyway. Okay, if not, thank you so much, Florence. Congratulations for your work, and let's move to the second presentation by Ludovic Renewal. I give you the floor.
Thank you. All right, can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, very good. Okay, so my name is Ludovic Renewal. I'm heading the Netherlands Center for Electron Nanoscopy. In short, it's called NISSAN. And I will present a business plan that I've written for the period 2019 and beyond. I think in the official title it says 24, but we decided to plan it a bit further. So first of all, maybe I should say that NISSAN is an open access national center that provides cryogenic electron microscopy services, both to academic researchers, Dutch and international, but also to companies. So what is CryoEM? Why is it important? Sorry, I'm just hiding the videos because it's hiding my slides. Well, CryoEM is important because we can study proteins, and proteins are the small particles inside the cells that do all the functions in your body. So better understanding the 3D shapes of those molecules help fight disease, define new therapeutics, develop vaccines. For example, in this pandemic year, we worked on coronavirus as other sites. We did two studies. The first study, we studied the virus replication once it's infected the host. And then by understanding how the virus replicates itself in the host, we can define or help support development of new therapeutics to treat infected patients. At the same time, we've also worked with Janssen company, who's developing the vaccine for Johnson & Johnson. So we supported the vaccine development by providing structures of the main target for vaccine development. So that's just to illustrate that CryoEM has become the method of choice for determining the 3D structures of medically relevant proteins. And it was awarded Nobel Prize in 2017. So it's really an important center and technique. So NISSAN is a central hub for CryoEM in the Netherlands since 2011. We are embedded in a Dutch electron microscopy infrastructure, as shown here. We are unique in the Netherlands with the infrastructure that we provide. There is no other similar instruments in the Netherlands. The situation is a bit different internationally. So we're also part of Instruct ERIC, and we're also part of INEX Discovery EU project as a network of similar research infrastructure. Actually, Earth's infrastructure in Zurich is quite similar, even bigger than ours. NISSAN is owned by Leiden University, but we serve local, national, and international users. For the period of the last 2 years, we serve Dutch users for 65%, industry 10%, and EU international for 25% of the time on the machine. So while we serve this wide range of users and we have different stakeholders, only one stakeholder takes a financial risk. That's Leiden University. And over the last 10 years, there was an agreement to support NISSAN financially for up to 50% of the total revenues. But this agreement is ending in 2020, and there is no agreement yet for the further coming years. So as of 2021, NISSAN could be at a financial risk. And that was basically the basic question for writing this business plan. So there was 3 aspects in this business plan: provide a report on the past and on the current situation of NISSAN in terms of finances and in the landscape of similar facilities, define the strategy to stay a site of excellence, and propose solutions to the financial problem. So let's first start by looking at the past and current situation. So if we put revenues and costs side by side in the last 5 years, we see that revenues are, as I said, 45–50% coming from Leiden University as a contribution, and the rest are coming from services. The main service we offer is data collection on these flagship instruments that we have. But this is highly variable, depends on the demand from the users. And the cost, so in black is the personal cost, and in cyan is the maintenance cost. So the personal cost has decreased in percentage because the maintenance has started to kick in. When we purchased the equipment in 2011, there was the grant was covering this maintenance cost for the first 6 years, I believe. So in 2018, we had to start paying some maintenance fees, and now it's pretty much 50% of our cost. And this is a quite high cost. We can have a look also at the user affiliations of the last 5 years to see how the landscape is changing a little bit. So in 2016, we mostly were serving international groups. This is the white color. And then in 17 and 18 as well, and it was also increasing a little bit. While the Dutch groups were not coming to NISSAN so much, I think in 16 and 17, mostly local groups were making use of NISSAN. And then we had an agreement with Diversify Services, which is the main, which is the instruments manufacturer, to come to NISSAN and use NISSAN as a demonstration site. But the agreement has ended in 2017, and it has not been renewed because our machines are getting older. So the manufacturer is not so interested anymore. But at the same time, in 17-18, we developed new services, and in 2018, we also obtained a grant from the National Research Council to start offering subsidized access to the Dutch researchers. And right away, we see that it works. And the Dutch academic researchers are coming to NISSAN for 70% of the time, approximately now. And also we can see in the last 2 years an increasing industry access. So we did a market analysis to compare ourselves and position ourselves in the market. I mean, it's clear that we are a Nord center, one of the first service facility offering such services. So, you know, originally we were unique. Now we are not so unique anymore. So we have to reposition ourselves, but we're still seen as an experience center. We have an excellent reputation. We have developed some commercial training with the instrument manufacturers. We have an excellent location, but our access rates are still high because we have high cost, especially the maintenance cost, as we've seen before. And we don't have unlimited funds, so we do need to raise money to acquire new equipment. Opportunities, we see an increase in industry access to NISSAN, so that's a clear opportunity. And also we are still unique in the Netherlands, so that's really a strong position to negotiate new equipment. The threat is mostly competitors, which are booming everywhere else in the world, basically. And the other point is that I find that there's no long-term vision for the center from the main stakeholder, which is Leiden University. So I did a survey of other facilities. So I contacted, I believe, 14 facilities, similar centers offering similar services with similar equipments. And it became clear that all of them have some sort of structural funding. Some are fully funded, 100%, even investments are funded, but most of them have at least 50% structural funding. So it's really difficult to compete with these facilities if we don't have also structural funding, because our access fees are just too high and users will go to other places. I mean, the newly opened Human Technopole in Milan will have a lot of machines. It's a brand new facility, and it's completely free for the next 10 years. I didn't ask Urs for his center, how it's running, but I saw in his tables that he's also having approximately 50% structural funding. So based on this market analysis and SWOT analysis, we define an activity plan. So for 2017 to 2021, and then further on. So I will not go through all of these points, obviously, but I will just focus on the time period 2019-2021, because those are more relevant for today. So let's start with the first one. So we need to renew our flagship instrumentation. So this is a graph with a 10-year forecast on revenues based on user coming to use our equipment. So if we keep our current equipment running, even though they are older, and let's say they keep on running fine, we will see a decrease and accumulate a deficit up to 5 million euros in the next 10 years. We could decide to slim down and get rid of some of the older machines that are not so popular anymore, but still we would accumulate a large deficit. So the only way forward is to renew our equipment and attract new users to the center. And even though we'll still barely break even, so that's still unsure even with new investments if we can be self-sufficient without structural funding. And we have applied for such grant. We asked for 6.5 million euros, which is the cost of a new machine. And the reviews were very, very positive. We had 4 reviews, and all of them said that's an absolute requirement for the nation, for the Dutch nation. So the second activity plan that we started is to, so we saw an opportunity in industry services. So we decided that we should focus on that and try to increase our revenues from industry, because in the last few years, from 16 to 18, there was a little bit of industry, but it was very marginal. And in 2019, we saw an increase in the total revenues. Around 5% of our total revenues were coming from industries. And then we started, so we are embedded in a bioscience park, surrounded by pharma companies. Not all of them do research, but we started contacting all of those pharma companies. It takes time. It's a lot of networking and public relations, and it takes time. But we see rewards this year by having more than 11% of our total revenues coming from industry, and that's something we will definitely keep on pushing. So we started discussing with the instrument manufacturer to possibly build a consortium of pharma industries and to purchase a new equipment that will be placed at NISSAN and will be reserved for industry clients. So we have interested parties, no commitment yet, but we need to gather a few more interested parties. At the moment, it's still early stages. We're discussing with the instrument manufacturer what's the best model for this consortium. They have experience. They've built 2 similar consortia in the UK with 2 different models. So this model needs to be adapted to this local environment, which is the bioscience park that we're embedded into. The third activity is to diversify services. So if we want to attract new users from different fields, we need to propose different services. So we started this already, and we have purchased new equipment through a grant that will allow us to do to attract more biologists, not just structural biologists, but biologists as a whole, to study cells and tissues. And this is very similar to what Urs has presented in his facility. So we don't have that yet fully working, but we have the equipment in place now. It's in commissioning. We are hiring new personnel to be able to offer this as a service. So we expect that it will be available in 2021. Then we want to develop and attract chemists to NISSAN. There's a technique called microID. I won't go into details, but possibly this is a small investment. We could possibly finance it ourselves, or it could be combined with the industry consortium, as it is of a common interest. And finally, we need to train, new groups of biologists to understand what we can do with them, for them. So we are starting to set up a formal university course for CryoEM and structural biology in general. That course, that curriculum is being developed now. And the plan is it will start in 2022, hopefully, but we'll see. We're also in the Dutch EM infrastructure that we are part of. There is a training committee. We are very active in this committee, and we already plan courses for the period 2021-2024. So 2 courses per year. And we are discussing to renew our commercial training with the instrument manufacturer towards different aspects of CryoEM. So, based on all this analysis and activity plans, we have set up an investment projections over the next 10 years. So all of the 2020 predicted investments have been realized. The 2021 have started with the 6.45 million euro grant has been written down, and first reviews are in. The others we could finance ourselves. It's still a bit not started, but that's something we're discussing, and some discussions have started also with interested parties. And then for later, for 2022, this investment is related to this industry consortium we are already starting to discuss. So I think we're on time for this one. All right, finally, the last activity, which is quite important, is to lobby national sources for obtaining structural funding. So it's clear that Leiden University does not want to continue on being this unique stakeholder providing financial support to us. So this we need to find other sources of national structural funding. But this has been delayed due to different changes, change in governance structure in 2019. There was a change of the dean of the faculty in January 2020. So all of these changes creates delays. And then there was a pandemic. So these discussions are just now starting, but this is a long-term lobbying effort that will take time. So in the meantime, we have to diversify our services and develop other source of revenues. So obviously, to track these activities, we have set the different key performance indicators. I will not go through them, but most of those key performance indicators are tracking the operations of NISSAN at the moment. But we are starting to use these key performance indicators already, and we generate monthly reports since the end of 2019. That will help us track our operations. And this is the 2020 report up to September, I believe. And yeah, in March, there was the lockdown, so no activity. We have to close for a little bit. Of course, there are risks that are associated to these strategic choices. We've defined a few of those risks, their impact and probability, and some mitigation actions. For example, it's very probable, it's certain that there will be downtime of the instruments. Those instruments are quite sensitive, so sometimes they stop working, and so this will happen. So we have to find other sources of revenues, which we cannot only depend on the instruments' performances. Maybe we won't be able to secure national structural funding. So then we have to look at different scenarios based on the 10-year financial predictions that are in this business plan that I didn't present in details during the presentation, but they're in the plan. There's a risk also that key personnel will leave. And this has happened quite a few times in the last 4 or 5 years. So we need to raise the number of permanent staff in the team, and we need to train more local groups so that it will be easier to replace staff that are leaving. We can have delay in investments, or we can not be able to organize commercial courses. So that's why we started to diversify training and develop new courses. And I didn't discuss the IT part, but as Urs mentioned, it's quite an important aspect of offering such services. So we have to, if we want to serve more industry clients, we have to make sure that our IT is secure, confidential, and also performing to the best. So just to conclude, the current investments will allow us to diversify our services. So hopefully this will increase our user base and thus our scientific input. And this will just make sure that we augment our NISSAN's reputation and we can get user access fees in a more regular manner. The next action is to really prioritize national the finding of national sources for structural fundings to ensure long-term sustainability, because relying only on service fees seems quite difficult for such a center. And all the tools that have been overviewed during this 18 months of EMMRI, I think I've used in this business plan. I really enjoyed it, so that was quite enjoyable. And thank you for listening. Thank you for the good atmosphere during the sessions and the previous visits. I really appreciated it. I found a picture with post-it thank yous, because every time I use a post-it now, I think of the EMMRI modules. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ludovic, for your presentation. Now the floor is open to questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ludovic, for your very interesting and I would say detailed presentation. It's very clear that it's part of your life in this year that was parallel to the master program. I have a question regarding KPIs, and I would like to understand from your experience, because I mean, there is a lot of debate about the importance of KPIs at S3 level. Now they are trying to find a sort of standardized approach to KPIs. And there is a debate here about comparing apples and pears in a way if you are trying to adopt a standardized approach. So I would like to ask you, based on your experience, what do you think about this debate? And second, what do you think about the effectiveness of the use of KPIs in your research infrastructure? So how helpful and how they were used? Because sometimes you have the impression that it's just a formal exercise because it's required.
No, so let's start with the last question, the second question. So the KPIs we're now using at NISSAN is mostly operational, I would say, at the moment. But for example, it's very useful to me to have a look on a monthly basis on our revenues, finances, make sure we are on track with what is planned in the budget. And also we have to deliver a certain amount of days to the Dutch groups. So that's something we have to also monitor over the year. I mean, we can't just realize 2 months before the end of the year that we are not on track. So that's something really we have to realize. And, user feedback is quite important. Sometimes you miss that users are not giving you feedback. So, I mean, all of these KPIs I found very, very useful. Also, you can track instruments, performance that can help you, identify the bad machine or different services. So it's an essential tool now at the facility in the operational aspect. For the other question, it's interesting because we are part of Instruct Eric, and I'm chairing the KPI committee that just started, and we are discussing this exact question. How do you compare apple and pears? And actually, the S3 said they will not compare research infrastructure using the KPI. That's what they say. Huh? So, but I think there would be comparisons. It's obvious. I think you can find common KPIs to compare each other. That's definitely possible. I'm not sure if that answers the question really, but.
Yes, you answered. And I think that being part of the team that is working on that, I think you will give also a great contribution. Yeah. Thank you.
Just a curiosity, Ludovic, why have you used one of the KPIs, the number of feedback forms, rather than the feedback itself in terms of satisfaction?
Well, we just want, so we have having trouble getting feedback from users, or it's difficult sometimes to get feedback. So we just want to make sure that those forms are sent and are sent back to us, basically. And we have a set of questions in those forms. So it's sort of a standardized feedback. So we can keep track in a standardized manner and have statistics, for example. So that's why.
May I? Licinio?
You're muted, Licinio.
Please, Marco.
Okay, go on.
Thank you. My question was on the same as Enrico, because user satisfaction obviously is important, and how often you receive an answer is maybe a little less important. I understand in your case where you have difficulties in receiving enough user feedback, that is the start. But I think I would recommend to also go into more qualitative satisfaction reports to see what the users are really feeding back. Thank you.
Yeah. So I didn't put the form in the business plan, but we have a free field where users can just write down whatever they want. It's not only specific questions. But actually it's an aspect that also users are aware of. And we have a user advisory committee. And the next one is actually in 10 days. And that's one of the topics. How can we make sure we get the proper feedback from the users? And that will be discussed in detail with the users, how to do this properly.
Thanks.
Questions
from Urs? Please, Urs.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ludovic, for illustrating this. While I understand that you want to go for industry users, how do you think you can combine this with basic research? Probably they have really different needs in a way. Can you comment on this?
Yeah. So the needs are different because you have to offer full service to companies. They can't just come and use your machine. You have to use it for them, prepare the sample, process the data, analyze the data, everything. So you need to hire more staff. That's clear. But for that, you also need a minimum amount of, industry clients. But that's also why we are discussing with some offshore to actually acquire a new machine dedicated to industry clients. So that will be sort of a separate node inside NISSAN. So there will be a staff just for industry clients. So that will be a new service, if you wish, alongside the academic center. Yeah. So that's how we envision to be able to really build on this industry client base.
Okay. Any other question? Let me ask you. I think you have presented a very much systematic and detailed activity plan, and I got the impression, but I would like to know your reaction about this. That maybe sometimes you may miss the so-called soft actions. I mean, actions oriented to the social system, to the social, cultural, institutional system, which are more related with the institutional and social sustainability of the organization. I mean, actions oriented for public support, social legitimation of the organization, even group or community accountability procedures, participatory actions with the public or parts or sectors of the public. And I would like to know, how do you react towards this comment?
Yeah. No, it's a very, very valid point, I think, yes. We've never really thought of this because we are part of a university, so we are part of the culture of the university, and we work with other universities that all have the same culture. So that's not something that we have thought of doing to develop our own culture, but maybe we should indeed to really gather more national support from funders. That's a good point. Yeah, I think that's something I will take out of this discussion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ludovic, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now we are moving to Carla's presentation. So I'll give you the floor, Carla.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Yeah, okay, thank you. I will share my slides. Okay. Thank you for your introduction, of course. And I'm happy I can present my field project today to you all. I enjoyed it very much, the course, the complete course of EMRI, and especially this field project. To explain my field project, I would like to introduce the Maastricht study to you, because it is maybe a little bit different than the other infrastructures. So the Maastricht study is a state-of-the-art, that's my pointer, state-of-the-art deep phenotypic cohort in the Maastricht, so in the Netherlands, the southern part of the Netherlands. And this started in 2010. And what was the intention was a deep phenotyping of participants. And at this moment, we have 10,000 participants in the cohort. And we phenotyped them for cardiovascular phenotype, lifestyle, chronic disease, central nervous system, public health, biomarkers, and we have a large biobank. And we do this all in the research center of the Maastricht study that is pictured over here. In the past 10 years, we focused on the research of these data, and our main goal was to look at the development and course of chronic disease. And of course, we created a lot of data, not only for us, but we wanted also to be an infrastructure for multidisciplinary research, and also, of course, for collaborative research. We did this together with national and international knowledge institutions, but also with business communities. And examples are the technological platforms that we used. The funding of our project, of the Maastricht study, was in part, so we started in 2010 with the funding of EFRO, that's a Dutch abbreviation for the European Fund of Regional Support. And after, together with the province, the MUMC, that's the hospital and the university, and other funders. But the problem of this is that each time there is only funding for a couple of years. So the first part was a large one, but after that, each time there was small pieces of money. It was a lot of money, but for a couple of years, and that came along with a couple of uncertainties for the cohort itself as a project. Could we do the follow-up? But of course, also uncertainties for the personnel we have, so the employment for more than 25 people, and the expertise we developed in this past 10 years. So we thought about how will we proceed, because after each period of funding, there was personnel that was going to other projects or whatever. So we have to think about how to proceed and how can we establish a more structural funding for both for our project. Let me say it like that. So the field project itself is about sustainability, and that's where we started from. We used a couple of methodologies. So first we started with a matrix custom and value proposition. After that we did a market analysis, and we used the Canvas business model to look in more details about sustainability. So first, the matrix we made for the custom and value proposition. We did this together with Brightlands, Maastricht Health Campus. That's a company closely related to the university and the hospital. And it is meant to help researchers with business development, marketing, and communication. And together with them, we made this matrix. So above, you can see the lifestyle coaching to improve health, research infrastructure and methodology, and data and biomaterials. So these were the things we thought we have by our cohort. And next to that, we thought about some customers, so general public, GGD and MoVC, that's Dutch, sorry. But these are, the first one is a health service, and this is more related to social questions and components, also a knowledge infrastructure. We have the international governments, health insurance, large-scale employers, nutritional companies, and pharma. So we made this matrix, and the stars, I hope you can see them. One star is low impact in euros, so in finance or in social parts. 2 is medium, and 3 is high. And then, of course, you have to look at the implementation effort. And so the yellow is low implementation effort, orange is medium, and red is high. So then, of course, these are all interesting things, but for this field project, I focused on 2 parts, and that's the contract research for nutritional companies and for pharma, and on the health check, because these things we can offer with our research center, and that could be part of the for the solution of the sustainability of the whole cohort, of the cohort and the research center together. But now we want to focus in this field project on the sustainability of the research center itself. And to make it, I don't know, more complex or not, we call it the Medical Research Facility Maastricht, not to have too much overlap to the cohort study we already have. So what should this medical research facility do? We want still to assess health and disease by measuring a lot of phenotyping in individuals, and we want to do that for research by academia or by industry. And on the other hand, we can offer health checkup. Why do we think this research facility is important or can perform these phenotyping for these purposes? Is we think we have high quality of examinations, we have qualified personnel, we have a high number of several techniques, we can do high throughput, we have a very efficient planning, we are flexible, and this combination of characteristics is unique, I think, for such a research facility. After this matrix analysis and starting with the medical research facility, we did a market analysis. And first of all, we looked at the demographics and segmentation. And I will come back to this, but we think that there was no comparable facilities available in a 100-kilometer range in the Netherlands, and also not in Germany or Belgium that is closely related to Maastricht. So the target market, we have discussed that. That's everyone who is interested in the extensive phenotyping of participants or patients, or whatever. So why do we think this is needed? For contract research, so if you look at academia or at industry, we think that they can use our facility without investment in highly qualified personnel. We have unique techniques, and they don't have to invest in buildings, so we can offer that all for them. And for the health checkup, we think that it's interested for employees, for employers to get insight in their physical and mental health of their employees, so they can put effort in their sustainability of employment. With this health checkup, we want to focus on large-scale employers because we think that's, for now, that's more easy for us. But of course, we can do that on individual basis as well. So if we then look at the competition, that's related to the demographics, I think. These facilities are not offered in a wide range around Maastricht. But because, of course, there are facilities related to phenotyping, like hospitals, the university itself. There we have high core facilities, also in Maastricht, but they are highly specialized in one measurement. And there are other medical centers that offer health checkup. But still, we think we are unique in the combination of the number of measurements and the availability of time and place, so we can do high throughput. So if you then look to the barriers to entry for the possible competitors, if there are competitors, are the investment in new machinery. So that's extremely high. We use complex technologies, so you need highly qualified personnel. In the past 10 years, we have a lot of experience in logistics and high throughput. So we think that is interested as well, and is a barrier for the other competitors. We have a broad range of techniques. The location is at the Maastricht Health Campus. That's area around the hospital and university, and also medical companies are over there, like Medtronic, so that's interesting as well. It's a disadvantage and an advantage that we are still part of the hospital and university. For example, we can use the same suppliers and so on. And last but not least, we have this experience for 10 years in this field. So, and we have proven that we can do this. So that provides us a unique brand. So after this market analysis, we also made a canvas model, and we started with the canvas model of the Maastricht study itself, so before 2020. Maybe, yeah, I will come back to this. And after that, we did that for the medical research facility of Maastricht. So that's after 2020. And as you can see here, I hope with the value proposition, it's still the same for the assessing human health and disease by deep phenotyping, but the lower part is different. And the revenue streams, if you look at the former slide, 95% of the revenues in the Maastricht study cohort, in the before 2020, sorry, was from the Maastricht study cohort, and we want to change that to 60% by increasing the amount of academia, industry, and large-scale employers. In more details, so the clients are changing from the cohort, the Maastricht study, to academia and industry and large-scale employers. The customers need, they don't have a dedicated infrastructure by themselves. They are interested in high quality and high throughput, and we think they should be located around Maastricht. What will be new for the customer relationships is that we can offer a tailor-made program. Until now, the most measurements are related to the cohort and Maastricht study, but we will invest in new equipment and new measurements. And we have to invest in the customer acquisition because that was not needed until now, but from now on we have to. And therefore we want to use also the communication channels The website should be changed. We will use the university and hospital, of course, and the Maastricht Health Campus, the Brightland Maastricht Health Campus, who have many relations in Limburg, the southern part of the Netherlands, with industry and pharma. Moreover, we have to change the governance or the structure of the research facility and of the cohort of the Maastricht study. So I think there should be two governance structures. So the board of the medical research facility covers all the projects, including the Maastricht study cohort, but also the other projects as well. Until now, the steering of the research center was done by the Maastricht study cohort, of the management team of the Maastricht study cohort. So I think we have to change that. So what do we want to do? We want to perform this switch to the medical research center in 3 years. We started right now, but of course it is not finished. The support of the hospital and of the university is essential, and also of the Brightland Maastricht Health Campus. We have to take into account that the cohort of the Maastricht study is important as well, because the finance of the whole facility will still be largely dependent on the cohort, but we want to develop this sustainable facility. And in 2020, we started with a couple of projects not related to the Maastricht study itself. We started with a trial from the hospital. The trial was, the application was from the hospital, but we do the analysis and the measurements. That's a vaccination program. We invested together with a manufacturer in new equipment, and this manufacturer wanted reference values for their new equipment. We also, together with the hospital, we did some COVID research for the hospital. So these are the projects we already started, but of course we want to do more in our facility. And thanks, by this are on trends, and I want to thank everyone, so the professors, but also the other students of the the Maastricht, of course, and the management team, and especially Elisabetta for their support.
Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you. Now we'll have the discussion of the project. Let's start.
I think I can start, since I was the last mentioned in the presentation. Thank you very much, Carla. I think it's a very interesting and also very challenging project, because what you're doing here is really to plan the survival of your research. I mean, your infrastructure, in the sense that you are planning for the future. Now, we have a plan now, and I would like to know if you already have some ideas on how you're going to implement it, and how you are sharing these with the board, and with also the other people that are working with you on this project and in your facility.
You are going to use the canvas as well.
Yes, I think so.
We explained it before.
There are several, I think, ways for this sustainability, and I'm especially interested in the research center, but other ones are more interested, for example, in the other matrix parts, for example, the data, the use of data by consortia or by pharma. So we are all together thinking about possibilities of sustainability. And each one in the management team from the Maastricht study cohort has now their specific interests, and I think that fits very well with our expertise. So yeah, it's really where we are working on right now. And because of this project, but also because of we got some money from the province, and one of the things we have to promise is that we will deliver sustainability both for the cohort as for the research center, and also on social impact. And we had to promise, of course, a lot because we got this money. But that is really something we are working on right now. Yeah, that's the only thing I can say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Lisinio, me?
Yes, of course, Marcus.
It's more a comment rather than a question. First of all, congratulations, Carla. I think what you have shown is that diversification of services and generating different income is one of the key points in the question of sustainability. You have very nicely shown that with the original cohort and the research done along the cohort, that this is essential and it has to go on. But the expertise you have acquired during that process can now be used for other services. And you have shown that even at a very local level, this is working very nicely. So thank you very much for showing that, because this can indeed be a showcase, as others have said, how existing local research infrastructures with a great knowledge, a great expertise can actually increase their customers, offer the services to other clients. So that's a great example. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Well, if not, we may move to the
Congratulations, Carla. Very, very good.
Yes, thank you, Carla. Congratulations for your work. And now we are moving to the presentation by Nicola. So I give you the floor.
Okay. Can you hear me and can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So, first of all, I'm very pleased to make this final presentation of my field project. Like the title of it is Defining Action and Strategy to Develop a National Genomics Competence Center toward a National Infrastructure. As the tutor was Professor Marafiotti. And without waiting, I jump first into the first slide. So for the background, I wanted to remind what is genomics. So the definition of genomics is the branch of molecular biology concerned with the structure, function, evolution, and mapping of genome. So concretely, what does it mean? It means that in genomics, we are studying how genome, which is transcribed to RNA, translated to proteins and to metabolome, how does that influence the genome? The importance of this study field is genomes as a lower complexity compared in the rest of system biology. What that means exactly? That means that genomes are usually with lower complexity and with less regulatory mechanisms than RNA, proteins, or metabolites, meaning also that they are a good base for life science, as modification of genomes or change of genomes are usually observed directly into phenotypes of an organism. So concretely, how did we develop a national genomic centers in order to provide genomic services academy. We had the foundation of research from Germany called DFG, who supported 4 centers as well as a coordination unit in order to provide genomic service to all the users in Germany. So the foundation invested in instruments for the 4 centers, in personnel for all the centers, and also organized an annual call for genomic projects. Here, the idea behind that was that most of the projects which are normally funded by the research foundation tends to have low budget, meaning that the user don't really have the capacity to perform ambitious genomic studies. However, one of the issue of this, or one of the specificity of this kind of funding, is that the structure would be limited in time. So the very first work that I did into this project field was better describing organization of the structures. The aim here is to refine like the aim and the vision, but also adjust the development of the priority into the structures and drive a more homogeneous communication between the centers and the users. Together with our colleagues, we put it together the need of sequencing platform. So this was basically a study that we made with other members of other centers, where we tried to highlight what are the specificity of the sequencing platform. And we came out with 5 major steps, which are the design of the experiment, the isolation of DNA or RNA, preparation of DNA, but also sequencing and genomic data process, which are unique, require different personnel specialization, also require different instrumentation and structures. Interestingly, when we went more in the detail of this study, we also found that a couple of steps such as experimental design or data processing, they are not only for genomic sequencing centers, but they are in general for technology-based platforms. So we then consulted our users and also the faculty members, and we discussed with them on a one-to-one discussion how do they see the need of core facility at the faculty, so locally. And the response that came from them were relatively homogeneous and could be categorized in 6 different parts around development of method, but also production, quality standards of the genomics data, central structures with clear and transparent contact, access to innovation of technology, and also education. So based on this reach out, we made a small seminar at the Faculty of Medicine where we promoted not only our model as a genomic centers, but also the implementation of this model in different core facility, which could be around proteomics or around different kind of technological service. We then got the opportunity to discuss also with the founders, like how do they see the importance of the national competence center, so not the genomic services locally, but the services nationwide. And for them, their view cuts relatively well, like the original concept, on which a particular interest should be put into the public outreach and teaching, strategy and science, the technology and production, statistics and computing, and also data management and production. So we decided with all the other with all the other genomic centers involved into this project to perform what we call the special interest group. So these are groups of 4 to 8 people, which is coordinating by a core facility in another city in Germany, in Cologne, where a group of people meet every month to discuss main issues and try to report the output of this issue either in white paper or on different channel social medias. So in the second part of my work, I then analyze the organization of the structure and operations. So here the idea was to define and communicate the specificity of the NGS Competence Center from Tübingen within the national competence centers. And most specifically, our aim was to improve the communication inside, but also outside of the network, to direct user in expert centers, better identifying the specialty of each center, and to attract relevant researcher as well as collaboration. So here, what comes out of this analysis is a bit similar to what we originally planned for. The positioning of the competence center of Tübingen is around mainly genomic health, with very strong focus currently on medical bioinformatics, but also oncology and rare disease. There is another cluster of study on microbial communities for translational medicine and microbial ecology, which is performed in a separate institute than the one from genomic health. There is also an interest into model systems from all the institutes which are involved into the NGS Competence Center in Tübingen. And we have a quite strong bioinformatic data center, which is continually building up with a lot of expertise on analysis, infrastructure, and methods and strategy for the harmonization. So based on that, we invited our colleagues from the central units in order to discuss the strengths and the weakness of our centers compared to the others. There, what comes out of this study and what was also reported to the funding agency is in Tübingen, there is a strong expertise which is focused on different institutes, meaning that there are clear allocation of tasks and clear developments in the city on the different genomic specialties. That we have very strong bioinformatics and we have a quite advanced data management system. But the weakness was that except diagnostic pipeline, which are developed within the university clinic, there are no focused developments toward biological studies. And one of the weaknesses is also the limited automation part, meaning slow production times and also like low capacity of the centers compared to the instrumentation which are there. So based on that, we build up opportunities by strong connection with the local machine learning teams, and also toward clinical genomics in the development. Based on the limitation of the automation, we also requested more funds, and we also invested money for developing order entry for the management of the facility, but also automation for the handling of samples. So there's a thread where more the continuity due to the limited project, the financing of the current novel technology and not the one which was funded by the agency, and also the infrastructure maintenance.
Nicola, sorry, we don't see your face. I think your webcam is closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. You only see my screen, right?
We are seeing the slides.
Okay.
I don't see your face. Just open the webcam.
I'm sorry. I try to open the webcam. Yeah, can you see me?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. So in order to process for the continuation and the investment, we decided to also study in our key performance indicators, what are the parts we are doing currently good and what are the parts we could improve. And there, what we noticed that since the year, the price is relatively attractive in our facilities. But interestingly, the method which are the most used, so here RNA-seq, is not the methods which are bringing the more samples to the facility. What does it mean? It means that we are collecting a lot of small projects, which takes a lot of our time and which don't bring a lot of money to the facility. There, the opposite, we saw that genome sequencing, despite being very few projects, bring a lot of sample. So there, continuing developing this pipeline would bring more samples and also more funds to the facility and for like a lower investments in resources. So based on this data, we decided to update or upgrade our communication models. And we broke down our communication in 4 different categories. What is the support, the communication, the development, and the data management. And to make this slide a bit short, one of the major weaknesses we pointed out is the low visibility we had. So we decided with the other competence centers to build up a portal which is called Profile, which helps scientists to find speciality into the competence centers, but also researchers who are working with the core facility who might have common interest or common procedures. Another point also which was a bit undeveloped was, as I said, the automation. So because we had a strong data management based on the software OpenBIS, which allowed us to build up a portal for exchange of data, we decided also to use the same background and build up what we call a laboratory management systems in order to be able to better communicate to the user when are the samples arrived, how far are they processed, and also document a couple of laboratory data that currently they don't really have access to. So the final part of the work I made is about the perspective of the sequencing center. Here we wanted to identify the limitation of the framework and we wanted to continue building based on the strengths of our network. So the limitation of the National Competence Center in a way is very similar to a classical small and medium business enterprise. Here we look at different perspectives from the productivity, from the processes, from the operational costs, the managing the uncertainty, which is a good point in research, improving the speed to market, creating like new products, increasing the business growth, keeping the pace of competition, retaining our users, and increasing the profitability. And we identify that due to the limited time we have in this project, the biggest risk here is the personnel, because without more fundings, we would have less personnel available. And there we saw that the problem would be definitely on improving the speed to market and creating innovative product with much less personnel. So in order to tackle that, we went back to the classic of genomics. And we identified, as it was identified in the early 2000s, that genome projects that we would like to build up are mainly contributing not only to basic biology, which for us doesn't really work well, as I explained with the RNA sequencing, but contribute also a lot to genomic to health and genomic to society. So we published a concept with our institute, on which we promoted that the genome sequencing can contribute to healthcare and to global health. So it's since several years now, there are many studies which show that in the context of healthcare, sequencing the genome of an individual is a cost-efficient performance because it allows with one single measurement to have a lot of readouts concerning rare disease, for example, but also different fields such as pharmacogenomics or such as, for example, oncology. The problem of this kind of study is they require a very large scales to be analyzable, and they require many training data. So we see genomics in medicine as an opportunity to continue developing the research infrastructures, and also by being built into the concept of healthcare, attracting some fundings. So based on that, we we decided to try to tackle what are the most common issues which are coming in such kind of projects. And similarly, what comes out of this analysis is that similar issues are seen in most of the technical projects. They are around organization of the project with a legal frame, a cultural aspect with, for example, the resistance of medical doctors to change their methodology. And there are some technical issues, for example, on the data protection, which is very relevant in whole genome sequencing. And also some scientific issues which are around training and capacity, but also the logistic of the sample. So based on that, we look in our strengths and conceptualize some specific solution for our core facility and for our competence center. And we decided, based on the specific interest group I presented earlier, to focus on the scientific logistic. So there we needed to test our solution and convince stakeholders that this will work. So due to the pandemic on COVID-19, we had the opportunity to use these structures that had the advantage to be implemented very fast as we were working on it. And we gave the opportunities to researchers to investigate viral genomes, immune response in host and host genetics. And this scaled up very fast, where almost 80 members joined us almost immediately, and where we could generate several hundred of data sets within a couple of months. So now our point is to be convincing with our data that we can scale that up to genomic health.
You have to finish, Nicola.
So the key learning of this presentation is the description of the organizatory structure. So for us, it's a strong know-how in genetic diagnostic. The analysis of the organization structure operation, where we realize that we need to build tools to centralize the logistic and the communication, and the perspective of the sequencing center, which is towards the genomic health. Sorry that I have bit in delay, and
no problem.
Take some questions.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for your presentation. Now the floor is open to questions.
May I?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Nicolas, for your very interesting and I would say also well-organized presentation, particularly because the topic is rather complex for non-scientists, let's say. Well, no, it's not a question. I would like just to understand a little bit more how you work at the knowledge level, because it's clear that the extension of the scope is also generating a very relevant impact on boosting knowledge. So I was, if you can add some details about either mechanism or anything that you put in place or you have in plan to put in place to really boost knowledge and advancement of innovation in this sense, that I think it's very key in a project like this.
Well, I totally agree. I think there in this kind of project, one of the major danger is as it's very at the border between basic research and services. We need to keep like solid publication tracks and on the same time develop a lot of infrastructure. So there we have to rely on a strong institute performing research where we can also like show our concept and our knowledge. I think the best output we can reach is like pushing publication from our colleagues and our institutes toward applications and toward conferences. So here the idea is reaching out group of people who might already be aware of solution, but who might not have a logistic ready to start. And the beauty of being on a like multi-center, multi-core facility is that even if you reach out people who are not directly relevant for your research, you can still insert them in the pipeline from other core facility to whom their specific research match a bit better. And the idea of being into a system is they bring also their friends or their colleagues. And like this is like a wheels, like the more people you involve into it, the more feedback you get, and the more scientists get involved, bring projects, and bring also money for the infrastructure.
Okay, more questions and comments?
May I make a comment, Licinio?
Yes, of course, Enrico.
Nicolas, as we've seen also from previous projects, it is important when you have new development of one core facilities to estimate some kind of financial plans and investments related to the development of this center. So I wonder why you have not just performed the second part of your analysis to present this development plan also with some estimation of figures and financial numbers, right? Because this is, my question is related to the governance issues, because I remember this is a center embedded within a university. So you need to discuss this with the governance body of the university as well. And not just the strategic part, but also the financial plan.
Yes, definitely. I was already a bit afraid that the scope is already so bright that that's covering too many points made the things a bit confusing. So there on the strategy, definitely, as you mentioned, so we work on budgeting. So we have so of course we have like short-term budgeting and mid-term budgeting. There I wanted more to raise the issue about like the long-term budgeting, because these kind of pilots that we run on like a very short-term grants are like project which costs like several million euros of budget, and they are a bit, how to say that, they are very short terms. These projects, these are like opportunities of big projects which comes where you already need to have a very good concept. When this project comes, how many managers do I need? How many technicians do I need? And how much do I want to reinvest into equipment and into infrastructures? And we presented in the fifth module the idea of like how do you make project cost and how do you budgetize. And there I spoke a bit that we have like a percentual that we are using in collaboration with the faculty. So the faculty agree that when this kind of large projects comes, we have that much of percentage for personnel, that much of percentage for equipment, and of course overhead. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. More questions, comments?
I have a question for Nicolas.
Yes, Marcella.
It was really interesting what you said about the profiles, the networking software. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so the networking software is a concept which was built up into the coordination unit, and the main issue is it's always the same issue on services. Who are the different partners with whom I can do service, and where is their real focus and publication? So ideally, user, when they would search for a service provider in genetics, they would love to have authorities from the sequencing center for validation of data. So they want to have users who have solid database behind them, who can validate the data on different cores, and who can connect bioinformatic groups together with biologists. And the idea behind that is, so it's basically neuronal systems where you build core. I think the ideas behind it is copied from what they call the Harvard study. So this is the node of Facebook, where by connecting people, their publication, and their co-workers, and by bringing manual input into it, you learn more and more who is working with whom on which kind of topics.
Okay. Is it implemented already, or are you working on that?
So there is a pilot version of it which is running. It's focused on the University of Köln right now, and I think they limited very much the node because they have to make a lot of manual adjustments that the machine learning starts. So right now they are focusing on a few profiles. I think they have only 80 profiles right now, and they would like to scale it up to all the profile of the centers, what would be roughly 300 to 400%.
Right. Thank you, Nicolas.
I will share the slide, and there is a reference of it if you want to play a bit with it.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? Okay, if not, thank you, Nicolas, congratulations for your work. And before Maria Luisa or Enrico closes this session of the morning, I would like to thank you all, candidates and colleagues, of course. It was a pleasure to chair this second chair in a so good intellectual atmosphere. And congratulations to you all. I wish you the best for your future professional projects, and I hope we can meet all together in the future. Really meeting, I mean, not with this intermediation of the technology, which anyway, it was absolutely necessary so that we could finish the second edition of the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Licinio. Thank you very much for your chairing this session, your continued contribution. I would say that these tools, internet tools like WebEx, Zooms, are like a sort of garbage can organization.
Yeah, sure, sure.
All the candidates.
We don't hear you.
I also wish to thank Licinio and all the candidates that really presented in such a professional way their project. I enjoyed very much listening, and I must say that we are very proud of the success actually of this project, because all the candidates really demonstrated that they had benefit from the lessons of the master, and they really applied what they learned in the field project in the real life. So thank you very much for all the work that have been done.